this video, I'm going to demonstrate the OR function that we talked about in class on Tuesday morning. And so before we get started in the worksheet, I want to take a look at this PowerPoint slide. The OR function is a logical function that returns a true value if any of the logical conditions, up to 255 again, are true, and a false value if all of the logical conditions are false. So it's kind of the reverse of the AND function. If you remember the AND function, in order for it to return a true value, both of the or all of the conditions have to be true. In this case, with the OR function, any of them can be true and it will return a true value. So in the worksheet, we are going to use an if-or statement to determine salary increases. So people whose job location is at home or people whose job status is full-time are going to get a 4% salary increase. Everybody else is going to get a 2.5% increase. So let's go to the worksheet and take a look at what that looks like. So for this particular function, I'm going to demonstrate something different. We're going to use structured references, and I'm not going to use the dialog box like the book does. I'm going to show you a slightly different way to do the structured references. So in P1, I'm going to enter salary increase as the column heading. And then in P2, I'm going to start typing my function. And so I'm just going to type an equal sign and an I, and it brings up a list of many of the functions that start with I. And I want the if function. And so right away in the logical test portion of the function, which is where I'm at right now, I'm going to enter an OR function. So again, I'm just going to type the first letter or so of my function so I can get the list, and I'll find the OR function and double click it. So now my two logical conditions are, if you remember, their job status has to be full-time or their job location has to be at home. So one of the advantages of putting your data into an Excel table is that it creates structured references. And what that means is that everything, for example, in the last name column, all of those cells can be identified by the structured reference last name. So I'm going to type an open bracket, and what that does is it brings up a list of all of the column headings in my table. And so I'm going to start out with location. So I'm going to find location in the list, double click on it, and then I'm going to close the bracket. If you have an open bracket, you have to have a closed bracket. And I want my location to equal home. That was one of the conditions. So that's my first logical test. And I'm going to type a comma to switch to the second logical test. And my second condition was that the job status has to be full-time. So I'm going to type another open bracket to get the list of the column headings. I'm going to double click on job status, and I'm going to type a close bracket. And then the job status condition is that job status has to equal full-time. And I'm remembering to put my quotes around the text so that Excel will recognize it as text. So now I'm done with the logical test portion with the OR statement. So I'm going to go ahead and close the parentheses. And notice, like we were talking about in class on Tuesday, my open parentheses for the if statement is black. When I start on the OR statement, the parentheses become green. So this is a way that you can check to make sure that you have all of your parentheses in place. One thing to remember is that the outside parentheses are always going to be black. Okay, so now I'm going to type a comma, and notice that value of true is now highlighted. So I'm going to now tell Excel what I want it to do if either one of those conditions is true. So if you'll recall from the slide, if the person's job location is at home or if their job status is full-time, they get a 4% pay raise. So I'm going to go ahead and type an open bracket to get the column list again. And this time I want to use the annual salary column. So I'm going to double click it. Remember to close my bracket. And I'm going to multiply the annual salary by 4%, 0.04. That's what I want it to do if those logical conditions, either one of them, are met. Then I'm going to type a comma to give Excel the instructions about what to do if both of those are false. So if you remember back to the slide, it says that if everyone else who doesn't work at home or isn't full-time is going to get a 2.5% pay raise. So I'm going to type the open bracket again for the column list, double click annual salary, close the bracket, and then I'm going to multiply that by 0.025, and then I'm going to close the parenthesis. Now my parenthesis is black, and you'll notice that that little screen tip went away. That means that all of my parentheses are in place. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter, and you can see now that my column has calculated all the way down. And if you want to go through and double check to make sure that your statement worked correctly, you could certainly get out your hand calculator and do that. So I see here that this person in row 2 has a job status of full-time. So that person should get a 4% pay raise. Now here's a person who works at home, so that would qualify him for the 4% pay raise, even though he's part-time. Here's a person who's a contractor. So that person would be one that would not qualify for the 4% pay raise, but would only get 2.5%. So you could double check your statement to see if it worked properly. And that's how you use the OR function.